好啦，我哋
We resume the meeting. We invite the officials to brief us on the document. We are going to discuss the government strategy towards prevention of African swine fever. We have Dr. We have the Undersecretary. We have also Dr. Thomas Sid, Assistant Director of AFCD. We have Mr. Bill Wong, PAS. We have the Dr. Shirley Chook of the AFCD, Mr. Dr. Philip Ho of Center for Food Safety, and Mr. Fok Peng Lam. Now, pork is a popular source of food. 90% of Hong Kong's pork is from the mainland, the live pigs. And starting last August, there were cases of African swine flu in the mainland. And 23 provinces have now been found to be vulnerable to have incidents of African ASF. Now, this ASF would not affect humans, and it's possible transformation to human infection capabilities is unlikely. Now, it can cause a high mortality rate among pigs, however, and since last August, the government has been meeting actively with the relevant stakeholders to prevent the spread of the ASF and also to ensure the supply of live pigs to local residents for foodstuffs. And in August, we met with the pig farms operators so that they take the relevant necessary measures. In September, we stopped the supply, the import of breeding pigs from the mainland, and in November, we amended the license terms and we also we banned the storage or use of swill of pork origin, and we have no incidents of the adverse developments from the spread of ASF in Hong Kong. Tommy Cheung, Siu Ka-fai, Vice Chairman, Chee Chung Tai, Helena Wong, Chen Ho-yan, Ho Chun Yin, and Claudia Mo. 4 minutes each. Tommy Cheung first, Vice Chairman. Now, for the African swine flu, if the pigs fall ill and people eat the pork, or the pig, or the pork is from a dead pig from ASF. Now, I can tell members of the public that there would be zero impact on human health, and the government should make that perfectly clear. The ASF has been in existence for decades, and all along it has had zero impact on human health. So what is the concern? The concern is that it might affect the pigs, the pig farms, or the importers will be affected if the pigs cannot be imported, and the retailers would run out of pork to sell. That's the real problem. Now, 95% of the pigs in Hong Kong are from the mainland. Only 5% are bred locally. Now, in the mainland, the infection is caused during transportation when the infected farms will pass through, and then the kitchen waste can then be used for swill. Now the pigs will then be affected, but when the people consume the pork, they will not be affected in any adverse way. So we try to address these two problems. Now there are live pigs from the mainland. Now it takes a certain period of time for the pigs to show symptoms. So the pigs are quarantined for a certain period before they come to Shenzhen and then to the slaughterhouses. And likewise, the slaughterhouses in Hong Kong are thoroughly cleansed. And all those in the industry are very alert to the cleansing necessity because they are afraid that they would not be able to sell their goods, sell the pork. Now, we understand that the department has done a lot of work. You ban the use of swill, and you introduce the disinfecting pool requirement. Now, suppose the affected pigs do arrive and the slaughterhouses close, then can you reopen the slaughterhouses within the shortest time periods possible, say 1 or 2 days? And then there's the compensation issue. If the pigs come to Hong Kong and you have to cull all of them, then how will you compensate the local pig farms? For the importers, you have to cull all the imported pigs. How will you compensate them?
個問題先。
Undersecretary. Well, first question, in case Hong Kong's see the outbreak of ASF, then in principle we agree that we should try to have a thorough cleansing as soon as possible. That's our goal, and to avoid the outbreak. But I know the whole process is complicated because, first of all, we need to deal with the affected pigs, the sick pigs, and we need to find out about who are the importers and also carry out disinfection procedures and deal with the corpse of the pigs. And then we also need to carry out 2 times of very thorough disinfection and cleansing. We also need to get vets on site to make sure that the place is thoroughly cleansed before a place can be reopened, so as to minimize the chance of having the fever outbreak again. So we hope that various parties can understand that, we're talking about various stakeholders involved in the process. We need their cooperation. We hope that with thorough cooperation of various parties, any period of closure can be minimized. As for compensation, I'll ask my colleagues to supplement. Who would answer on compensation? Dr. Sit? Yes. As for compensation, for local farms, we will discuss with the local farmers the compensation for various types of pigs. As for the slaughterhouses, we know that the FEHD staff and the AFCD would sit down to talk about what should be done. And as for the prices to be quoted, the price of the day or the average price, we will discuss it further with the sector. Okay, supplement. The Pork Trade Association has written 2 letters, one to the secretary and one to the panel. Okay, I'll show you later on. Next one, Tommy Zhang. Sorry, I was at another meeting earlier. Yesterday, I met with the Undersecretary for Food and Health and FEHD, and we talk about the issue. I hope that I hope to see that. Well, that's the hope of the sector, that the government, in conveying the message to the public that it's safe to eat pork, and conveying that message, it seems like the government has not done enough in its public education work. In that regard, last week, sales of pork plummeted. It improved a bit in the past 2 days. So I hope that the Undersecretary, could you think about how to disseminate the message to the public more effectively that they can eat pork without any worries about safety, whether it's the mainland authorities or Hong Kong authorities. The public should have faith in them. The ASF would not actually affect humans, and if the pork is properly cooked, there'll be no problem at all. So I hope that you can address and respond to the concern of the sector. Maybe I and the Undersecretary, or together with Ho Chung Yin. Well, even if he tends to talk more about fish than pigs, well, I look more like a pig myself. I think no matter what, I think maybe we should all sit together, or maybe I can try to pretend to be a butcher to convey the message at the pork store. You know the sector is wary. I know it's difficult for you to say when the outbreak might happen, but at a meeting yesterday you said roughly that should something happen at slaughterhouse, should there be ASF there, then the compensation offered to the farmers and the traders who will get the compensation, and also compensation for mainland farms as well. As in comparison with Hong Kong pig farms, because Hong Kong farms breed all sorts of pigs, big and small. But there should be a price for the pigs that are killed in slaughterhouses for food. So the sector still wants to know, should an outbreak occurs in slaughterhouses, when can the SL government accept pigs from the mainland? I hope that you can give us roughly. Of course, we don't know this would happen, but should it happen, I hope that you can give us an idea of the whole process that we can expect to go through. For example, you said yesterday that it could be a one-off disinfection. Center for Food Safety and the AFCD may want to have another disinfection, and there may be more time needed, more days needed before the pigs can be re-imported. Yesterday at a meeting, and afterwards we tried to convey what you said to the setting, but I hope that you can make some kind of arrangement to help the traders be less worried and have an idea of possible compensation when pig imports can resume. Who would answer? Undersecretary. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your question and views. As for communication with the stakeholders, particularly in terms of or in relation to compensation, I think we are still carrying it on, and we cannot really generalize the details here. So I hope that, as Dr. Sid said, our colleagues will continue to negotiate and to communicate with them. So today, here may not be the right occasion for us to give you all the details. As for the public understanding of the whole issue, scientifically speaking, well, more than once we had conveyed the message through various channels on the facts, but the public may still be scared. So we'll go back and review all the messages that we have disseminated, verbal and written messages, and see whether they are enough. If not, then we can review and see how we can strike a balance between explaining the scientific basis, implications of the disease and the impact on human. Let me say this again. ASF is a disease affecting animals, not humans. Next one, Chen Chung-tai. I understand that for ASF is about pigs. It's a fever affecting pigs. But for quite a number of pork vendors, they are in a difficult time now. They may be losing more than $300 per head a day. I hope that officials understand that people did not get worried for no reason, however, about ASF. It's not just psychological. It's because of the lack of flow and lack of flow of information and lack of understanding about the problem. But I don't think that it's ASF. Because it's ASF, then there's no risk to public hygiene. The problem lies in the fact that the government might not have the measures in place in relation to the pork in China, pigs that die in China whose meat have become processed meat as sausages and so forth, or frozen meat as well, that are brought into Hong Kong. So if we eat that kind of meat, then even if it's not afflicted with ASF, people could have stomach ache or other diseases, or do not feel good. Because also there could be traders who turn some problem pork into feeds for pigs. So what sort of measures do you have to avoid that from happening? Dr. Ho, thank you, Chairman, and Mr. Chang for your question. In the mainland or in Hong Kong, pork, before they are slaughtered, for the pigs, before they're slaughtered, they need to be inspected to make sure that they are fit for human consumption before entering the market. So if it is found as a result of inspection that the pork or pork products are not fit for consumption, then that is if you answer that way, you can understand why the public remains worried. As mentioned by the Director of Audit report late last year, the Center for Food Safety and the relevant department in your inspection system is full of loopholes. I hope that the government can answer me now. The Director of Audit report points out that frozen meat, there's a deep problem with the definition of frozen meat. What do you mean by frozen meat or pork? And that's why the public is worried. Because there could be a large number of pigs that died in the mainland, and then at the border control point, right near the control point, they froze the meat. And then the pork became frozen products and got imported into Hong Kong. So there could be a large number of pigs in China that died because of ASF. And if that's the case, how can you, through your inspection of other meat products, be aware of the occurrence of ASF? Other countries have banned the imports of pork products from China. So how can you help the public rest assured? For frozen meat, to import frozen meat into Hong Kong, the traders would be asked to present health certificates before those products can enter the local market. But Dr. Ho, maybe I asked you this as well. Would you, during this particular time, for all the imported frozen meats or chilled pigs, would you take the initiative to test whether they are infected with ASF? Would you do that? It's not about whether the frozen meat has ASF or not, but even if the cold meat has ASF, it would not spread the virus to humans. Chairman, I'm not asking about whether there could be mutation, pathologically speaking, because if this is meat from dead pigs, then people having it, consuming it, could suffer from nausea after eating it. Well, firstly, it wouldn't taste good, and also there could be some health problems as a result of consuming those problem meat. In Taiwan, Dr. Ho, often for pigs imported from China and also pork products, they would inspect whether they are infected with ASF. So would the Center for Food Safety in Hong Kong follow suit? And what's the reason of not doing it? Mr. Wong? Let me try to answer Mr. Chang's question first. You seem to assume that for infected pigs, In China, they have no way out, therefore they are turning to processed meat products. But in fact, that's not the case. Let me clarify it. Our understanding is that on the mainland, their control at source is very stringent. To the mainland, for ASF and how to control it, they've done a lot of work. And the SAR government and the mainland authorities have kept up communication in preventing ASF. As mentioned in many media reports, in the mainland, should pigs be found to have been infected with ASF and they need to be culled, and the government there would compensate the pig farmers for it. And the compensation amount has been enhanced so that there's no incentive for the pig farmers to turn the pig, the meat into other products for fear of loss. And even if there are pork products that are infected with ASF, it would not, the virus would not be spread to humans, because we've done a lot of work before in terms of trying to prevent local farms from being affected. The AFCD therefore taught pig farmers a lot about the spread of ASF and enhanced the biosecurity measures. In November last year, the Undersecretary, as he mentioned then at the beginning, in November, the AFCD wrote to all pig farmers that we have amended the rule banning the feeding of pigs with kitchen waste, because for kitchen waste they're not thoroughly cooked, the pigs could be infected. So since November, we had been communicating and we told the pig farmers not to use kitchen waste as feed. Therefore, and by the 12th of this month, all local pig farmers will not use kitchen waste as feeds. So if they are importing mainland meat products, even if the meat products are infected with AFS, they would not reach local farms because the local farms would be strictly complying with the rule. Therefore, pig farmers would consider their own interests and be careful, and they would not want or let their staff to bring in all sorts of meat products into their farms. And they've been, and also the AFCD has also stepped up its inspection to ensure that the pig farmers are stringently following the biosecurity measures. As the chairman mentioned about the practice in overseas, about the stringent requirements on imports of meat products, but they were not worried about so much about people having nausea or diarrhea after eating problem meats. Their concern is mainly with the impact on their live pig farming industry domestically. But as I said, we have done all we could with the local farms to avoid them being infected with ASF. So therefore, I think we have different considerations, and our considerations and that of overseas countries are different here. Helena Wang, for pork infected with ASF, whether they are frozen or chilled meat, the virus, how long can they survive in the meat? The virus, how long can it survive in the meat? Doctor, for the pork, should it be contaminated? Depends on the temperature of the storage place. It could be there for months. The virus could be there for months. How many months? Depends on the environment of where they're stored. So, Dr. Ho, what's the maximum period for chilled and frozen meat if the meat itself has been contaminated before being killed or culled or slaughtered? The DSF virus, how long can it stay? Some literature find that it could stay for even a year. Okay, more than a year. I've seen from some data that virus could survive for 33 months. That is 2.7 years, as long as that. I think the public are very concerned that all the frozen meat or even fresh pork being sold in the market, how much of them are infected with ASF virus? Even though you said that, but even if you consume the meat with the virus, people would not have any health hazards. But the public still wants to know because we eat a lot of frozen meat every day, day after day. And if the meat is contaminated and the virus can stay for so long, for years in total, then how is it that the government never carry out any tests of frozen meat and fresh meat and chilled meat in the market? If it turns out that most of the meat in the market are contaminated, but it's just that you won't die from eating it, you're most worried about the pigs dying. And if that's the case, then we still need to take precaution because we're talking about loophole in inspection and quarantine checks, because people could take out meat from their fridge to cook. In the process of defrosting, in handling the meat, if most meat in the market is contaminated, then even people go back to the farms and they may actually the farms could be infected as a result.
So shouldn't we take random sample checks of fresh pork and frozen pork available in the market to see whether they contain the virus? You should let the public know, and you should provide guidelines for disseminating information to the public. What about the offals of pigs? Say for the offals of pig used in congés, they won't usually be thoroughly cooked. There should be guidelines for the public to understand how we should handle this kind of food. Who would take the question? Dr. Ho. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Wong, for her questions. I think we need to consider a number of matters. First, on food safety, whether there is any risk. And we've made it clear that this is not a disease that can be passed on to humans. And indeed, in meat, we have a lot of bacteria that are not really contagious. These bacteria or virus are not contagious as far as humans are concerned. So whether or not the meat is infected with the viruses is not directly relevant to whether it is a human disease. Now, as far as the ASF is concerned, we're concerned whether the virus would spread to local pig farms, and the AFCD can give you perhaps more details on their measures. Our focus is that we should not be worried about pork and pork products as long as we cook thoroughly. This would be safe for human consumption. Then for those visiting pig farms, would you tell people not to cook pork products or to buy fresh pork or chilled pork? Perhaps let me finish first. As far as FEHD is concerned, we would step up our effort in inspecting imported meat, and it's part of the prevention measure. We should prevent the spreading of ASF virus in Hong Kong, and we have stepped up our effort in this regard. What about chilled pork or frozen pork? Well, in terms of food safety, neither frozen or chilled pork is a concern. Well, let's wait for another round. I suggest that Dr. Wong follow this up in her second round. Next, Ms. Chan. Well, I think for the ASF, the most important point is to prevent the spreading of the ASF virus across the border into Hong Kong, because if the virus is present in Hong Kong, it would be too late. So we need to do a very stringent gatekeeping job. We have 3 slaughterhouses in Hong Kong. Well, but mostly we're concerned with the 2 slaughterhouses in Chunwan, the Fanling, and for the Cheung and for Chengchao, the live pigs are supplied by Chunwan. Well, for the mainland, the situation is very serious, whereas in Hong Kong, we haven't seen any trace of ASF virus yet. Well, for example, for Chunwan slaughterhouse, can we focus on local pigs, whereas for Shangshui slaughterhouse, we can focus on the slaughtering of imported live pigs, so that if there is an outbreak, we can still have the slaughterhouse available for operation. I understand at the moment the slaughterhouses in Hong Kong at the moment house both imported as well as local pigs. The ASF is so severe in Hong Kong, so severe around the world. I think we should introduce this measure. Second point, I think we have heard a lot of questions from members. Clearly, this is a result of a lack of publicity. We're all still very concerned whether it is a zoonotic disease, whether there will be a different strain of ASF that would pass on to humans, whether it will be safe to consume pork. I think you need to step up publicity and education. You mentioned that this has been done, but clearly the effort is not sufficient. Who would take the questions? Mr. Wong. Thank you, Ms. Chen, for her questions. I think Ms. Chen is very clear about the whole procedure. For the triage or streaming of pigs, the government is in support of the proposal, but there are divergent views at the moment, and we are discussing with the slaughterhouses whether this is possible. In terms of gatekeeping, however, our focus is as set out in the paper. We take a multi-pronged approach from various perspectives at different levels in preventing the spreading of ASF across the border. And the whole government, including the FEHD, CFS, and other stakeholders, slaughterhouses, we make joint effort. And at the outset, the Deputy Chair already explained in great detail the supply chain of pigs from the mainland, and I can only say that there is very stringent gatekeeping at the origin, and in fact there has been an outbreak across different provinces in the mainland several months ago, and basically the pigs would be kept in their farms on the mainland for several months, exceeding the time frame required to make sure that there is no presence of the ASF virus before they are exported to Hong Kong. And then at the Mankamto BCP, the CFS staff would observe the pigs to see if there are problems, and samples would be taken for testing. And at the slaughterhouses, we also take a very comprehensive approach. As for the streaming of pigs, we have divergent views from the sector. Well, for the sector, I think for the merchandises, they may need to make an extra effort to go between the 2 slaughterhouses. Still, I think we should discuss the option, and I hope the government would consider it. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful for all the members' concern on ASF. But I think the concern has been expressed a bit too late, because the first outbreak was announced on the 3rd of August, and at that time we already wrote a letter to the mainland authority, and back then the ASF virus had not crossed the Yangtze River, and it was still up north, and we already discussed the possible solutions, the checkpoints that live pigs would need to go through before they are imported into Hong Kong. And I think the government should explain to the public what you have done in the past 5 months. For example, 96 months and then 96 hours and then 5 hours, 4 hours, and then the live pigs will be kept in Qingshui transfer house for observation. You have implemented all these measures. What about other options? Streaming of pigs in the 2 slaughterhouses. Well, I think this affects the whole supply chain of pork, because if we are to create a separate supply chain of local pigs for retailers, because of the limited supply of local pigs, it's not really cost effective. So is it possible for the government to provide support financially, say $10 or $20 million to subsidize Xinhuan slaughterhouse? Well, we have been arguing about this for a number of times. Well, because initially some pig farmers staged a non-cooperative campaign in relation to the culling of pigs and the procedures, as this could cause ASF virus to spread to Hong Kong, affecting pig farms in Hong Kong. And it was thought that we strongly objected to the government's proposal, but this is not true. We work closely with the government. Second point about the focus of the government's publicity effort. The government has been criticized for not having done enough. Well, basically, I don't agree, because of course, members of the public would make sure that the food is safe to eat, and they would safeguard their own personal health and safety, and they would refrain from buying anything that may contain the ASF virus. But another criticism is about the government's insufficient effort in preventing ASF. The government hasn't done enough in safeguarding the importation of ASF tainted pork. Well, I think the public can also be vigilant about pork and pork products. For example, when they go to have a barbecue in the country parks, they can make sure that they won't leave any meat or meat products in the rubbish bin, so that the wild pigs would not have a feast on such food waste. So that's another aspect of gatekeeping. And I'd like to apologize, because I did request the CFS to conduct inspection on imported meat products for the presence of ASF virus. But I was wrong. I shouldn't ask the CFS. Instead, I should ask the AFCD or somebody from the CDB, because perhaps this falls outside the purview of the CFS. It's just, overall speaking, the responsibility of the government. Well, perhaps you should tell the public, even if you eat raw pork in the form of sashimi, you won't catch ASF. Of course, you won't recommend that cooking method, but at least you can check the how widespread the ASF situation is in Hong Kong, so that we can manage a risk. So I do have a lot of questions. Maybe this I'll pause here for the first round. Next, Mr. Xu Kachun. I'd like to pick up on Mr. Stephen Ho's question. Well, today the government mentioned that the mainland authorities impose very stringent gatekeeping. According to media reports, however, I understand that in terms of Hong Kong government strategy in tackling ASF, we are on the more relaxed side. For the mainland authorities, all pigs in the affected pig farms will be culled, as well as pigs living in 13-kilometer radius of the pig farm concerned. But in Hong Kong, only pigs in the affected pig farm would be culled, not pigs in other pig farms within the 3-kilometer radius. Well, so there is a big difference here. Why can't we align our standards with the mainland authorities? About the non-cooperative campaign, in an article dated the 22nd of December 2018 in Mingpao, Chen Kin-ip, chairman of the Alliance of the Agricultural Sector in Hong Kong, criticized the government for sacrificing the sector, and he invited the 43 pig farms to take part in the non-cooperative campaign. And I want to know how we can prevent the covering up of the spreading of the virus, and what is the government's response to this non-cooperative campaign. Anyone taking this question? Dr. Sid? Let me take Mr. Shiu's question on culling of pigs in local pig farms. If ASF virus is present in a local pig farm, all pigs will be culled. For pig farms within the 3-kilometer radius, the supply of live pigs would be suspended until the testing result returns a negative. I understand that our approach is the same as the mainland. The most important thing is to prevent the supply of live pigs to the market until we are sure. So it's not just about culling of pigs. We need to cull pigs, infected pigs, and we need to make sure that the pigs so supplied to the market would be clean. But in the mainland, the criterion is 13-kilometer radius. The supply will be suspended from pig farms within the 13-kilometer radius. Well, in early 90s, all pig farms are subject to the government's licensing mechanism. Now we have 43 pig farms in Hong Kong, and our staff monitor pig farms on a regular basis and conduct snap checks. Whereas on the mainland, there is a question on whether all pig farms must be licensed. Hong Kong is indeed quite a small place, so our officers can travel within short periods of time to visit different farms. We may not need to follow the rules of different countries. For example, in Australia, all chickens within a 100-kilometer radius would be culled if they're infected with the avian flu. So we cannot compare with other countries. What about the non-cooperative campaign? 2 weeks ago, perhaps due to a misunderstanding, some pig farmers were not clear about our culling arrangement. After we explained in detail the relevant arrangements, some pig farmers again met with journalists and explained that they've understood the culling arrangements and withdrawn the campaign. And we need joint effort between the government and pig farmers to control ASF. So there is no question on the covering up of ASF, right? In terms of any epidemic outbreak, any incident, once the testing result returns positive, we never cover up any incident. Mr. Poon Siu Ping. Chairman, well, the government already briefed members on the measures in tackling the African swine fever. Over 90% of live pigs consumed in Hong Kong are supplied from the mainland, some 4,000 heads per day, whereas only 290 heads are supplied to the market from local pig farms. So mainland live pigs is an important source of pork in Hong Kong, and Chinese New Year is approaching soon. We'd like to be able to enjoy pork as usual. I understand from the paper that there is a paragraph on slaughterhouses, cleansing and disinfection in Shangshui, in Chunwan. And then in paragraph 14, you mentioned that the first phase of the installation works of the disinfection pole at the entrance of Shangshui slaughterhouse was completed on the 5th of January 2019. The second phase is expected to be completed in early February, and you will liaise with the 3 live pig importers to explore sealing or half sealing the pig carrying trucks with a view to preventing leakage of pig excrement. I'd like to know your progress and your management of pig carrying trucks.
You said that in September, starting in September, you stopped importing the breeding pigs from the mainland. So for local pig farmers, I don't know how long the stoppage would last. Have you assessed the impact? No one? Mr. Wong? Now for the trucks, now for the 2 slaughterhouses, they would have these pig carrying trucks going to them. Firstly, there are the cross-border trucks that take mainland pigs to Hong Kong, and then there are local trucks that transport local trucks to the slaughterhouses. Now, we are discussing with the industry for the approach in both these cases. Now, whatever the approach at the exit of the slaughterhouse and of the farms, we do a lot of disinfecting, and we further step up the biosecurity measures. Now, when pig carrying trucks go in and out of slaughterhouses, now as Mr. Poon pointed out, there is the disinfecting pool at the Shangshui, and we use high pressure jets and hot water to thoroughly wash the trucks to disinfect thoroughly. And at the pig farms, they have the same request. Now, as for the breeding pigs, I will ask Dr. Sid to respond. Dr. Sid of AFCD. Now, in October last year, we stopped the importing of breeding pigs from the mainland because the breeding pigs have to reside at the pig farms for a long period of time. So the risk is high. And we suggested to the pig farmers that they import breeding pigs from other countries or places such as Taiwan, or Europe, or the US. And the FCD will help the pig farmers to procure these pigs from non-affected jurisdictions. Now you can. Now, I'm concerned about these preventive measures. Since 2018, the infection has spread, and members of the public are concerned. Fortunately, there hasn't been any live case, any case of infection in Hong Kong. We thank the department's concern. They monitor well at the sources and have improved the management. Now, the ASF will not affect humans, but it can cause high mortality at pig farms, and there is no vaccine or preventive or curative solution right now. Now, Right now, we often see the wild pigs or boars even in the rural, even in the urban areas in Hong Kong. Will that present a loophole? Has the government conducted a risk assessment and taking monitoring or preventive measures? Now, right now, there is no preventive vaccine or effective medicine for ASF. So this is a serious threat to the pig industry all over the world. Will the government allocate funding to research and develop the relevant drugs, perhaps in association with the mainland? I will try to answer the first question, and perhaps the experts can answer the second one. Now, on wild pigs, there are cases that the wild pigs also suffer from ASF, but we know that biosecurity at local pig farms is quite complete, so that would be enough to prevent the contact between wild pigs and pigs on pig farms. I believe our biosecurity measures are sufficiently preventive to avoid contact between the two types of pigs. Dr. Sid? Now, on the drugs now, this is a virus. It can enter the lumbar cells and various parts of the body of the pig, and there is no cure by drugs right now. Now, this is a rather unique type of virus, and there are very few viruses that resemble the ASF virus. So it may not be a pig virus, it may be some other type of virus that happened to infect the pigs in the past century. When there's ASF, say in Brazil or Europe, they use culling to prevent the outbreak. So so no jurisdiction has come up with vaccine. I talked to OIE experts recently, experts of the World Organization of Animal Health. They haven't found any vaccine for ASF. Now it's my time. Now, whether the government has done well or otherwise, in any case, there has been no outbreak of ASF locally. Now, at the boundary crossing points, still quite few residents still carry with them raw pork. Now, this causes a risk. It might cause ASF or other transmittable diseases. So all along, or in this incident, in this case, in this matter, now the customs and excise are not here today. I would like to ask about the implementation of the control measures and prosecution of those cases. Now, before the government recovered some of the licenses, there were over 200 pig farm licenses. There are now 43. And it's now less than, under 10% of the local supply. But a lot of importance is attached to the local pig rearing industry. Perhaps this is an opportunity for the government to consider. Now, even if there are no new licenses being issued, can you encourage the local pig farmers so that more choices are offered to the local residents because the local brand is a mark of confidence for the public. Now the ASF issue affects people's confidence in consuming pork, and so there should be more preventive measures, say, at the boundary crossing points. Now, I haven't noticed the government increasing the level of publicity. Now, why hasn't it done that? Now, why hasn't it stepped up publicity on prevention of ASF? Now, right now, the many staff at the pig farms. How can you ensure that they are subject to some sort of quarantine? Now, for the local workers who go to work at the local pig farms, how do you ensure that they will not carry the ASF virus back to these 43 pig farms? Now, on the carrying of pork across border, we are concerned about that, and we step up the publicity as within the boundary crossing facilities and within the MTRCL trains. We inform the public that this is a breach of law, and we have stepped up efforts, and in first 9 months there have been 294 prosecutions and over 150 warning letters, and the highest penalty is 6 months imprisonment. Now, have you stepped up the enforcement on ASF? Yes, we have stepped up the effort since last August, and we will further step up the publicity. How about the local pig rearing industry and how to protect? Now, I will answer the second question first. I will supplement what Dr. Ho said. Apart from the posters and banners at the boundary crossing points, now also within the social media, the CSF also uses the social media to spread the message. Of course, we have always publicized the fact that ASF is not a health risk. Now, but we will step up the effort. Now, the chairman asked whether there would be increased support for the pig farm industry locally. Now, right now, after the right now, the 43 pig farm licenses remain. The government doesn't intend to amend the policy. All along, the AFCD offers a lot of technical information to the pig farmers, and the Agricultural Development Fund, starting in 2016, has received applications from different sectors, and we approved funds for city university for studies that benefit the local pig farms. Now, we hope that the local pig farms can enjoy sustained development and be a provider of quality pork. Locally produced pork fetches a higher price, so they target a certain market position, and the government will continue to offer support. How about local staff? Dr. Chok? Now, at local pig farms, usually the staff, every time they go in or out of the farm, they first go walk through the disinfecting pool. They would be disinfected, and they wear protective garments. So every time they go in and out, they change their clothes, and there would be reduced chances of infection. The second round, Helena Wong and Stephen Ho, 4 minutes each. Helena Wong. Now, Chairman, now I'm a bit confused from what I heard. Now, we understand the government has conducted a lot of measures regarding the import of live pigs. So on quarantine and so on. Now, Dr. Ho mentioned that at Customs and Excise, they would stop the illegal import of pork, of meat. Now, does that cover raw pork, semi-raw pork with blood on it, and even prepared or meat like sausages? Now, the law right now regulates the raw pork if it has just been if it's just doused in hot water, that would still be regulated. It would be considered raw pork. Now, would the cooked pork be immune from ASF virus? Now, after pork is subject to heat treatment, then it would be free of ASF virus. So if someone buys pork product like sausages or salted pork in the mainland, now would that be free from ASF, and would you prosecute that? Now, on management, under current law, is the raw pork, raw meat that is banned. Now, if pork has been treated, then it will not be covered. Now, would such pork be vulnerable to ASF? Now, if that kind of pork hasn't been properly cooked, then there might be a problem. So even those sausages might be problematic. Now, after heat treatment, the virus would die, but it can still be tested because it's DNA. It has DNA. The DNA is a very sensitive test. It tests for the DNA, not whether it's a live DNA. Now, all the preventative measures are targeted at live pigs. Now, in my first round of questions, I was asking about the fact that the virus can survive in chilled pork. Now, if your measures are all directed at raw pork, then your loopholes would be in the chilled pork. Now, there are 4,500 metric tons of chilled pork arriving in Hong Kong every year. Would the FEHD or AFCD take samples of them to see whether they contain the virus? So you tell us that when we buy raw pork and cook them, it's safer than buying chilled or frozen pork because nobody is checking frozen or chilled pork. Now, Dr. Wong is talking about food safety. As we said, it's not a food safety issue. I know what you are saying. The problem is that people will cook, they will buy, they will wash and consume the pork. Even if that doesn't affect them, they might go to the pig farms. Now, can you guarantee that they won't consume any pork, those workers at the pig farms? Now, would that be a loophole? Dr. Wong is saying that if the worker ate some infected pork or pork product when the worker goes to the pig farm where he works, would that spread to local pigs? Dr. Sid or Dr. Chuk? Now, the infection of the ASF is mainly by pigs eating something that contains the ASF virus. So all along at the farms, we conduct talks to tell the workers there that the swill or the feed for the pork, for the pigs, must not contain any pork. So it should be, the feed should be made of corn or wheat. And secondly, the workers cannot go to another pig farm or to a slaughterhouse and then come back to his the farm where he works. Now, say the pig farmer buy some chilled pork and defreezes it, and he then enters the pig farm. Will he affect the pigs? Now, two questions. As the chairman asked, if the worker eats the pork supposedly infected with ASF, then now the food in the pig, the pork will, in any case, will not affect the human being when it's consumed.
Your question was that if the staff bring in pork to the farm and they feed the pork to pigs, then that constitutes a risk. Yes, but they may cook pork soup or cook with pork. Even if the staff don't cook, well, other staff might. So in the process of being in contact with pork, isn't it that he could bring the virus to the farm? Dr. Sit, Dr. Wong was talking about risk level. So could you just give an answer on whether the risk level is high or low? So we know that the chances of that happening is not high, but can you be more specific? We have warned local pig farmers not to bring in pork of suspected origins into their farms. And our local, well, you said that, how would the pig farmers know what the origins of the pork are? If I went to a supermarket and bought a pack of pork, I wouldn't say that the source of that pack of pork is unclear. The virus we just heard could stay in the pork for 1,000 days. The person may not have bought something, a pack of pork, frozen minced pork or whatever, and the pork was not suspicious at all, and yet no one had carried out any tests on the pork to test for virus. Well, I think now's the time for Ho Chung-in. Yeah, I think it's due. The worries are due, but I think we need to get our act together instead of just asking. We have asked pig farmers not to bring pork products into their farms, not even for the food that are used to feed dogs. They should not be brought into the pig farms. Over the past 2 months, we've done a lot of work, including for the pig consignments from the mainland, when they need to go through 4 times of inspection and quarantine. So we think that we've done a good enough job to tackle any suspicious products stop them from being brought into Hong Kong. And the government said that if you kill the pigs, the compensation will be offered on the basis of market prices. We agree, but we hope that the SAR government can further enhance their measures. I have 2-3 proposals for you. Firstly, some pig farms right now in Hong Kong, actually, they would collect, have access to some vehicles used to collect feces. So they should, and also they should be really kept away from the parks. And for the trucks used to transport pigs, they should also be disinfected. But for some farms in Sai Kung, they told us that they could not disinfect the trucks because of the location, because they are on a slope. So they want to get the government to offer them a site for them to carry out the cleaning there of the trucks there instead. And just then members also mentioned maybe it's a psychological issue. Well, that is the government actually has carried out its competitive work, and it said that it has provided in Shanghai, in other slaughterhouses, disinfection pool. But we think that this disinfection facilities could be further enhanced so that, for example, the disinfectants and the cleansing can actually offer 360 degrees coverage of the trucks that go through them. You can actually make sure that every truck, besides being cleansed, as we proposed to you last time at our meeting with you, the FEHD should monitor the process of cleaning trucks to make sure that all the trucks are cleansed before they enter slaughterhouses or pig farms. So I wonder what the administration thinks about my proposals. Okay, specific points made. Who would answer? Dr. Sid, is it? Or Dr. Chuk? Mr. Wong. Mr. Wong. Chairman, I'll just try to answer first, and then FEHD's Mr. Falk could supplement. Firstly, for trucks that are used to collect feces, as Ho Chung Yin said, we have carry out special measure together with the Environmental Protection Department. We have contacted its contractor to make sure that the feces collected are in good order. And as for the cleansing of the truck used to ship pigs, we have disinfection pool in the slaughterhouse. Besides that, after the trucks have entered the slaughterhouse, once the pigs are unloaded, the trucks will go through a very comprehensive cleansing process. We use high pressure jets and also disinfectants to thoroughly cleanse the trucks. And also the operators of the slaughterhouses will monitor whether the cleansing job is done properly before allowing the trucks to leave. Lastly, Mr. Ho, his last proposal, I think we need to look further into it, but Mr. Ford, would you supplement? The spraying of disinfectants, well, in Sai Kung, the pig farm, yeah, the disinfection there for the farm there. Yeah, I think we need to look at the geographical location of the farm first before I can answer you. But at this moment, we think that we have done the best we could. That is, besides going through the disinfection pool, after the pigs are unloaded, as Mr. Wong said, we have high pressure jets and the spraying of disinfectants. And the trucks will have to go through a disinfection pool before they leave. And therefore, we think that the arrangement now is acceptable. But where there are even better machines to ensure thorough cleansing, we have to look further into it. But the entire process, cleansing process, is it monitored by FEHD? You need to ensure that it's properly done. The cleansing process is properly done. Well, now it's done by the driver or the workers, and then the operator would monitor them, and we carry out random tests. I think you better not have random tests and look at each single truck as it's being cleansed. Okay, well, Hannah Wong, third round. Chairman, I'd just like to ask about separate slaughtering of local and mainland pigs. There are 2 slaughterhouses in Jumon and Shanghai. Is it possible that local pigs can all go to the Chuan slaughterhouse and Sheungwan only process the mainland pigs? I know there could be difficulties, but for the purpose of disinfection, at least we could avoid cross-contamination. Would the government try to move in that direction? Separate slaughtering of pigs. Thank you for the question. As I said earlier on, we support the direction. The government agrees with that direction. But there is a big gap between the two slaughterhouses in the volumes of pigs being slaughtered. But we'll continue to have discussions with the operators. So it's not with the department that is opposed to the idea, but it's the sector that has reservations. But for the local pigs every day, is it 300 heads to be slaughtered every day? But for the Chuan slaughterhouse, it can process up to 400, right? Is it that the sector thinks that 300 heads are not enough to cover the cost? It's about money after all. I think besides the volume of slaughtering, it also involves logistical arrangement, because there are separate logistic arrangement for both slaughterhouses, because the slaughterhouses send pigs to different places. That is, for if local pigs all go to the Chuan slaughterhouses, there could be difficulties in delivering the pigs to the clients. Well, Hong Kong is small. Hong Kong isn't that big. The stakeholders voice concerns, and that actually stop you from doing anything. The sector has their own commercial considerations. We need to respect them. But as I said earlier on, separate slaughtering is only a part, one direction of our entire control measures. We support the direction, but everything that we've done, from the importing to slaughtering to feeding at pig farms to negotiations with mainland authorities and also control at source in the mainland, we're talking about a 360-degree control. But as I said, I would discuss your idea with the sector again. But we need to respect the views of the sector as well. But if it so happen that ASF infected pigs are brought into Hong Kong, if that's the case, would you separate slaughtering? Yes, we can say that. But as I also mentioned, the two slaughterhouses have different volumes of slaughtering. If ASF came into Hong Kong, all the local farms would be in dire straits. They have to kill all the pigs, and you will have to compensate them. So if that happened, it's better for you to separate the slaughtering so as to minimize the chances of cross-contamination. I think the government should really strive hard to have a fruitful negotiation with the sector. Third round, Ho Chun Yin. I think that the public is very much concerned about separate slaughtering. We are also concerned about it, but there are outstanding issues. Like in Shenzhen, the slaughterhouse there is operated by Ng Feng Hong, and Chuan slaughterhouse is a privately run business. And in Shenzhen, the transportation cost is not covered, whereas the Chuan slaughterhouse covers the transportation costs. So if you can deliver all pigs to everywhere in Hong Kong, if you deliver a pig in a truck, one truck. So it's all to do with the costs. And so you need to consider this whole system, whether there can be smooth operation of the entire system. So it's not as simple as you think. We can also consider, we did consider whether in Chuan the local pigs and one or two lines of mainland pigs could be slaughtered there as well, together with local pigs. So I hope that the administration can continue to work hard on reaching a deal. My other question is, for some pig farms, they don't want to see outside trucks enter straightly into their farms, or just go there after they have been thoroughly disinfected. So, but there are some geographical constraints. Can you consider finding some government land near the farms where, like a transitional plan, for arrangement for the trucks to be thoroughly cleansed before going to those farms? Is that possible, you think? Who would answer? Dr. Sid. Thank you, Chairman. Our understanding is that in Hong Kong, most of the farms, when they transport the ships to the slaughterhouse, if the trucks are not allowed into the farms for the sake of avoiding infecting pigs, usually pigs are loaded onto trucks outside the farms. We know that there's a small number of farms that do not have the disinfection pool. So, as I said, maybe they would have to have the pigs loaded onto the trucks outside the farm. So for the request of particular farms, I think later on you can pass us the information and our colleagues will see what follow-up action they can take. I think you can take the initiative more. There are only just 43 of them altogether, so please consider the request. And lastly, I will call on Hong Kong public to prevent the spread of ASF into Hong Kong. It's not just the responsibility of the Hong Kong government, it's the responsibility of everyone here. You don't need to be worried that ASF could be transmitted to humans. Even if you have eaten a raw pork, well, I would not suggest people eating raw pork, but even if you eat raw pork with ASF, it would not be passed on to humans. But this is a big livelihood issue. If the outbreak did occur in Hong Kong, 15,000 jobs would be affected. I don't know how many families would be affected. That means if the imports of pigs is stopped, and if the pig industry is dealt a serious blow, it will take us 2 to 3 years to revive the industry, because we need to bring in the small pigs, and breed the pigs, and also to carry out tests, and that takes time. I hope that every one of us can join hands to protect the poultry industry in Hong Kong. Lastly, about pig feeds. Now you are banning the use of kitchen waste as swill. So January 12 is coming up. How are you going to implement the ban? And also, I agree with many members as well that the government should make use of this opportunity to step up your publicity, particularly at border control points, and also to spread the message in relation to health risks. I think the government can really step up its publicity. Okay, the question on swill. Yes, we have amended the license conditions, which stated they cannot use will of pork origin or in contact with pork or pork products as the feed. Every time we inspect a farm, we would look for evidence that shows that they are using the swill or kitchen waste. We have the right to revoke the license anytime. So we found those banned swill being used. For people using swills of fish feed origin, then they could provide us with the information first. We'll see where they get the fish. If they get a fish from a market a store next to which is a store selling pork, we could ban it. We would require that they must get the fish feed from a fish market and away from anywhere that pork is sold. Okay, if there's no AOB, then meeting adjourned. Thank you all.